Here we go. On the road. Holy sun. Fired up.
You are listening to Voices from the Diaspora.
Teach me, teacher. Teach high and I am a teacher. Teach me, teacher. Teach high and I African teacher. I never be late. I always early. I never absent. I always present. That's why I and I not sit down in no back bay. And he like to be bright. So bright. Teach me, teacher. Bright. Teach me, teacher. So bright. Teach me, teacher.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Voices from the Diaspora. My name is Abdul Majid Savage. I'm in the UK. And my guest in this pre-panel discussion interview is Dr. Jimmy Kande, who is Professor of Political Science at the University of Richmond in the United States. But he's not here in that capacity. Rather, he's here to speak to us about Teach for Sierra Leone, TFSL, which is a foundation, which is a new foundation is planning to launch this year. I see you have, the foundation has a Facebook page already. Now, before we come to the objectives, let me ask you, Dr. Kande, briefly, can you give us a sense of the conception and the origin of the TFSL? And when do you hope to launch it?
Well, I got this idea of launching an organization like this from having had a lot of students who have participated in Teach for America and have gotten back to me with some ideas as to how much they benefited from their participation in Teach for America. So Teach for Sierra Leone is somewhat modeled after Teach for America, although again it departs from the model in terms of not only the focus, because we're focusing on an underdeveloped country. America is a developed country, and Teach for America is more concerned about high school, primary education, and recruiting students, and we cast a much wider net, including trying to recruit diaspora returnees to Freetown, or Sierra Leone rather, who can share their experiences and expertise at all levels of education. So, and we are also more transformative than Teach for America in terms of our objectives, and I'll try to list those as we go along. But the overriding thrust of the Teach for Sierra Leone is really to address the issue of educational inequality in our country and to try to improve access to quality education for all. And that is, we're talking about the disadvantaged, educational opportunities for the disadvantaged and the poor so that they can have access to quality instruction effective teachers as well as basic learning materials, which are, missing in much of Sierra Leone. In terms of the launching date, looking at July when I'll be in Freetown. Hopefully I'm going to be in Freetown in March as well, but it's for some unrelated assignment, but I'll also make some time during my spare time there to try to work on this, lay the groundwork for it, which will include trying to meet with some of the important personalities over there in government, in the Ministry of Education, and hopefully also have an audience with the President, because we want to work with successive governments, whoever the government is. We want to be able to work with that government, pursuant to some of our goals and objectives. So the launching will be somewhere in July. The date has not been set yet, but I hope to be in Freetown all of July anyway. And I'll be working exclusively on that.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So now we can move on to the objectives, the proper objectives of the foundation itself. What are the broad objectives that underpin your foundation?
I'll just list these objectives, and not go into detail, although I'll talk about how we'll go about, achieving each of the objectives. The objectives are really to provide access to quality teaching and education for the poor and disadvantaged. Another objective is to improve access to basic educational opportunities for all Sierra Leoneans. Further objective is to help eradicate mass illiteracy and ignorance. Another objective is to educate to end poverty, because we consider education to be a game changer, and if we're going to engage in any social transformative project, education has to be at the center of it. And we also want to raise educational standards in Sierra Leone that are falling, woefully. We want to catalyze social transformation, be a catalyst for social transformation, as well as work with other organizations and agencies that are committed to some of these objectives. Now, for each of these objectives, we've outlined how we're going to go about trying to achieve them, what you might call modalities or mechanisms or whatever for achieving them, and I could go into those if you so require as well.
Yeah, okay, I think it's proper for you to just go into those details so that we see how best you want to achieve them.
Okay, in terms of access to quality teaching and education for the poor and disadvantaged, we're going to try to recruit and encourage young college graduates who can then teach for 2 years in poor, remote, and underserved communities, and we'll pay them well to do that. We're also going to try to provide teaching materials for disadvantaged schools. We're going to try to encourage diaspora returnees, as I said earlier, to do some part-time teaching, targeting the underprivileged. We'll organize workshops, to tap into some resource synergies, as well as develop mechanisms for collaboratively tackling some of the issues of educational access and disparities. And we also intend to launch what we'll call an Educate to End Poverty campaign, around the country. Now, our second objective is to provide educational opportunities, and the way we are going to go about that is to construct TFSL libraries throughout the country. Like the TFA in America doesn't have a library component, but we're going to have a very strong library component, and we'll try to construct these libraries throughout the country. We're going to designate instructional spaces and teaching labs at these libraries, and we'll try to make computers as accessible to schools as possible, and we'll also work closely with teacher training institutions to try to improve curricula as well as access to teaching materials. And we'll also facilitate the placement of young graduates in graduate programs after they complete their TFSL commitment. Now, the third objective, which is to eradicate mass illiteracy and ignorance, we will go about that by organizing annual literacy campaigns, which some have already done before, but, the more the better. We'll launch reading and writing programs and competitions competition. We'll initiate some adult education schemes. We'll establish mobile teaching, what we call a Teach Mobile, programs in each of the 12 districts. And we'll also want to focus much of the teaching on development, what we call Teach for Development, by situating some of the teaching efforts and outcomes, in the context of the country's development. Now, how do we go about educating to end poverty? We seek to promote the value of education as key to transformation at both the individual and social level. We'll be developing courses that explore the linkages between education and development, and we'll also do our best to encourage TFSL participants to pursue courses in the helping professions, and then work closely with the Ministry of Education on educational policies and outreach programs. Now, in terms of raising educational standards, we want to recognize outstanding TFSL teachers, establish national reading and writing awards programs to be named Read for Sierra Leone and Write for Sierra Leone, and then we'll try to establish computer labs with high-speed internet access at TFSL libraries. And another way we go about this is to try to help, in rehabilitating Frobe College and restore it to its former status as a pioneering institution of higher learning in Africa. We want to promote what we call an Adopt a School initiative, which will pair schools with local patrons as well as with patrons overseas. This could be individuals as well as schools. We want to advocate and lobby for better pay and conditions of service for teachers. And we also want to build what we call a Building Excellent Schools initiative, which will reward excellent schools and provide them with some of the building blocks for teaching and educational excellence. And the other aspects will facilitate long-distance learning and what have you. Then to promote or be a catalyst for social transformation, we're going to be organizing workshops, seminars, and conferences focusing on both the challenges and opportunities inherent in social transformation. We'll also be a leading advocate for expansion of educational opportunities. We'll challenge the government to do more to lift the masses from out of poverty through an aggressive education to end poverty campaign. And we're going to be working with other organizations and initiating programs and collaborating and liaising with international organizations on issues of mutual interest and importance. We're going to also have at least engage in some evaluation, some assessment. So each year we'll set some concrete annual goals and targets of work that we have to undertake, and we'll also conduct annual self-evaluation to see whether or not or to what extent the organization is achieving its stated goals, and also try to produce annual reports that will summarize the organization's goals, activities, achievements, and plans for the future. We're going to start small. I mean, we're aiming big, but we're going to start small, and, incrementally we'll get to some of our goals. There are a few things I've been thinking about, but, I'll have more to say about those later on in terms of what our first-year goals and targets are, the kind of things that we think we're going to be able to do. In terms of how we're going to be able to fund our activities, basically we're going to be applying for grants. These are project grants. We can apply for them from, foundations. It could be the USAID, it could be the World Bank. There are grants that are available that we'll try to access. We're also going to have to rely on some pledges and contributions, some donations, and we'll also target some individuals, for targeted solicitations and fundraisers. So that's how we're going to be able, to fund our activities. The hope is that in the long term we'll be able to have an endowment, that we can grow over time, to have a very solid financial base for the organization.
Thank you, Dr. Kande. You really have given us both the objectives and how you hope to achieve those objectives, which is really laudable, and I think it's really encouraging. It's good to hear this kind of message, to know that there are people who are thinking about creating a foundation like yours. Just wondering if there is any other thing, because basically you've given us the gist, and since we haven't launched the program, everything is we're looking forward to the future. It's futuristic. We're only looking at things from, from your intentions and other things, for now. I don't know if there's any other thing you might want to add. But basically, you've given